one of the coolest things about being a human, I think, is that bodies don't lie. And the reason bodies don't lie, which is one of the best things in the world, is because they can't. Bodies can't lie. It's not possible. Now, brains can lie. Mouths can lie. We can lie about our feelings, but bodies don't lie, which is why they are invaluable for diagnosing illness. I worked for several years in a big medical center in Boston. I was the head of spiritual and energy medicine, and there were 20 doctors on the staff, and most of them were functional medicine doctors, and they would get close to a diagnosis, but they would feel like they weren't getting to where exactly they wanted to go. And invariably, the man who founded the place would, started by calling me on the phone and saying, "Hi, I'm sitting in my office with a patient who," and he'd say this, this, this. I wouldn't know the person's name, how old they were, what he thought the problem was. And he'd say, "Can you tune in and see what you get?" So I would do that. And I would tell him, "Oh, well, what you think is actually a swollen knee has nothing to do with a swollen knee. It has to do with this." And invariably, I would come back to some kind of emotional story where a person was not able to tell the truth about their feelings, or not able to speak the truth about what has happened, or stuck in some way. And when you go back behind symptomology, there's almost always an emotional and spiritual component to illness.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who's out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. My guest today is Dr. Susan Corso. She is a metaphysician and has spent 40 years in the field of spiritual healing. She is an expert on managing the human energy system through work with the chakras. We're going to find out more about that in a minute. First, I'd like to invite you to visit my website, theexplodinghuman.com. Over there, you can listen to episodes, read synopses, see photos of my guests, a little bio on myself. And there is a donate button if you'd like to support the show through Patreon. Thank you very much. There's also a YouTube channel, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. You can listen to episodes there, and the Exploding Human Facebook page. As I said, my guest today is Dr. Susan Corso. She spent the last 40 years as a spiritual healer. She is the former head of the spiritual and energy medicine at Vision Healthcare in Boston, Massachusetts. And she is a gifted medical intuitive. And we're going to be talking about chakras, what they are, what it looks like, what colors are associated with them, and how we can heal energetically. We get into some things about the origins of disease and trauma. And we talk about some of the ways that we can work with ourselves. Susan is an absolute delightful guest. The time went so fast that I'm going to have to talk to her again. So here we go. This is Dr. Susan Corso. Good morning, Susan. It's so great to meet you, and I'm glad we got to talk before the recording.
Good morning, Bob. How are you?
I am so good. I'm really happy to talk to you. We had a little delightful pre-interview conversation, which was nice. And you mentioned something about people leaking energy all day long, and the ways that people do that, and what transpires when that happens. Can you talk about that? I found that really an interesting way of putting it.
Sure. All beings are, let's just start with this. All beings are energetic beings. So what that actually means in concrete terms, let's start there, is that when doctors go to medical school, they study 11 systems. You know, the skeletal system, the respiratory system, the circulatory system, all those ones that you learned about in anatomy class in the 8th grade. But there's a bigger question that raises, and that is, what causes a circulatory system to circulate? What causes a respiratory system to respire? Well, I would say that what causes it is life force. And life force is a spark of life. And I mean that quite literally, that exists within each one of us. It's the animating force. Now, it has all kinds of names: chi, prana, mana, life force, Reiki, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. It doesn't care what you call it. But for argument's sake, life force. I tend to look at the world through the lens of the chakras. And the chakras are the life force seen through a prism. That's why they're rainbow colored from the bottom of the spine, a little higher than that, up above.
Okay.
So leaky is this. Let's say you walk into a big apartment building and there's a doorman. And the doorman's crabby, right? Doesn't say anything nice to you.
Okay.
And you say to yourself, I wonder what bit that guy, right? That's a clean interaction. You're not leaving any of yourself with that person. You're just noticing that that person is not available to connect with you. And you don't know why, and you don't tell yourself a story about why. So let's do that again, except you know the doorman, right? So the doorman's name is Joe. And you come in, and like you do every morning, and you go, "Hey, Joe, how are you?" And the doorman is crabby. Well, then you go, "Wait a minute, what did I do?" Right? So what happens then is some part of you, as you walk past Joe to get to the bank of elevators or to buy the newspaper or to buy your Starbucks or whatever you're doing on your way to work, right? You leave a little piece of yourself with Joe, and you tell yourself a story about that. Wait a minute, Joe is usually nice to me. Today, Joe was crabby to me. Something must be wrong between us. How much of yourself do you leave? Well, let's just, for argument's sake, say that it's 1%. Do you really think that by 5 o'clock that day, you are not going to have interacted with 100 people? Of course you are. Think of the number of emails in your inbox. Each of those is a person. Emails don't send themselves, except when my cat Smooch sends mine, but right, but I write them. Smooch does not type. So, okay, you leave a piece of yourself when there's a story that's unfinished.
You're giving something of yourself through your thought process. Really, it's it's all imagined. It's all
and
perception.
It's attention. It's attention is what it is.
Okay.
What you attend to. Here's an interesting thing, right? We say, you're in school, right? Pay attention, Bob.
Yeah.
Well, pay attention. There's a cost to attention. And when I'm paying attention to Bob, I am not paying attention to Joe the doorman. So if I don't have enough me, because it's actually 5:30 and I'm just getting home and I'm toast and I do not want to see a spouse or kids or a dog or a television or a newspaper. I want to see silence and quiet and a little bit of restorative time. But these are even more people that I have to interact with. It's an Aikido thing, you know. In Aikido, when someone attacks an Aikido master, that Aikido master deals with the attacker, right? But when there's another attacker, the Aikido master finishes with the first person and then returns to herself before she goes to person 2. What we aren't taught how to do is to return to self. So Joe is crabby, and you don't know why Joe is crabby. Maybe Joe has an upset stomach. Maybe Joe had a fight with his boyfriend this morning. I mean, maybe Joe's shoes are too tight. You have no clue about why Joe is cranky, right? But you make it personal, and you leave a piece of yourself there. Now, that's Joe, and it's 1%, and it's a 3-sentence interaction. But what happens? Let's ratchet up the cost here. What happens when that's actually a fight with your girlfriend that takes 25 minutes and is done, but not resolved? You determine to go to your separate corners and hang in there. Oh, well, then that's a whole lot more than 1%. That costs a whole lot more. So unless we learn how to return to self and restore energy, we're literally leaving pieces of ourselves elsewhere. I can't tell you, Bob, I've had a spiritual counseling practice for 40 years. Person after person who come to me, I have to say to them, there are pieces of you that are missing. Like you're a paper doll and you've just, cut out little edge pieces and made confetti everywhere. It's so hard and so not necessary. But we're not taught actually how to take care of our own energy. In fact, I would say to you, probably if you asked, 27th graders, if human beings had an energetic system, they might look at you like you were nuts.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was never something that was brought up when I was a kid. Never.
No, nor I. But
even in spiritual or religious practices, I won't say spiritual because those sometimes are the exact opposite. Right. But there's people that talk about God in one way, but they never talk about spiritual energy, which seems to be very different than just this sort of magical deity up in the sky.
That's what's called a transcendent God. My definition of that is the God of the Alps, right? The God that is always bigger than your problem.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm more interested in is the God that is immanent, the one that lives inside you and inside me. If I treat you like you are a God-inspired being, it is easier for you to treat me that way. But if I treat you like something I found on the bottom of my shoe, then you have every right to treat me the same way.
Yeah. Are there practices and cultures that you see more of what you're talking about as endemic to that culture, that much more so than our Western culture? Because it seems like we've lost a lot of that if it was ever there.
Yes, certainly indigenous culture has, and I mean that from sea to shining sea to shining sea to shining sea and pole to pole to pole to pole, all indigenous culture tends to have a connection to natural rhythm. And if they have a connection to natural rhythm, be it the sun, be it the moon, be it a calendar of a particular kind. It doesn't really matter how it's defined, the hours of the day, light and dark. There's all kinds of ways to connect to nature. Certainly indigenous to the United States, there is a whole totemic culture of animal identification called animal medicine. And so those cultures that have stayed connected to the rhythms of nature include themselves in that rhythm of nature. So they pay more attention to their own natural rhythms. In the old times, when the Jewish tribes were functional as tribes, the women, when they were at their roughest emotionally, their bleeding times, went into what was called a red tent. And they set themselves apart. Now, that was partly due to the cleanliness laws, but it also protected everybody from emotional excess and PMS. Women listen to their own rhythms. Part of the menstrual cycle of a woman tends to make her want to nest and come away from busyness. So I think it's what has happened in the West in particular, American culture certainly, and industrial culture, is that we have worked very, very, very hard to learn how to use our brains to override our minds.
Yeah, that's true. And it's about a lot of it's about, this is not really the right, well, it is the right word, but it's a sad word, conquering nature, overcoming it. I mean, I was, growing up, I basically was taught, not, if not overtly, it was certainly there, this idea that we can dominate nature. Bugs are bad. The elements are something to be fought. Mm-hmm. All those, it's really interesting stuff. And when you're a kid, what's the most fun thing to do? I grew up in Ohio, so going out in the snow, so much fun. But the adults are like, we got to get snow plows. We have to make sure and some of that's real stuff too for survival. But it was like, oh no, a snowstorm. Oh no, a rainstorm. A tree is growing onto something. We need to chop it back. It's an interesting idea because there is some survival pieces to that are essential, but there's also this idea that nature is something to be fended off.
It is a skewing of a biblical teaching, actually, that God gave humankind dominion. That dominion and domineering are not so far apart, right? Yeah. When in fact, yes, humankind were given dominion, absolutely, but not over nature, not over animals. We were given dominion between our own ears if we will learn how to use it. And I don't have dominion between your ears. You have dominion between your ears. The only dominion I have is between my ears. What am I going to think? How am I going to interact with this? And yes, because what happens when we approach nature as something to be overcome is then we ourselves, because we are a part of nature, whether we like that or we don't like it, treat ourselves like there's something to overcome. How many people do you know who are crazy, wildly trying to control their emotions all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Ever met a 3-year-old? That 3-year-old's mad. You know that scientifically most emotions last for 90 seconds. 90 seconds. That 3-year-old's mad. That 3-year-old gets mad, gets over it, and 2 minutes later is watching Barney and totally happy. Yes. We don't, though. I get mad, and then my brain pipes in, wait a minute, nice girls don't get mad. Well, I have a few choice things to say about that, but maybe they're not for public consumption. This nice girl gets mad. And why does that need squashing? Now, maybe I don't need to screech in the middle of the subway or in your ear, since we're talking on amplified things at the moment. No, but do I need to get mad if I'm mad? I need to honor mad if I'm mad. And we don't do that. We squash it. Mm-hmm. And then we get cancer and we want to know why.
That's an interesting thought of disease tied in with unexpressed emotion or thought, creating certain types of diseases. And I think that that's probably true. People even say, I'm having a gut reaction to something.
I can't stomach that.
Yeah, and it does seem to start there in a sense. I know when I'm upset, let's say, the word I use is I'm churning. I'm churning.
Good word.
Yeah, and or I feel a lump, like a thick mass, like in my throat. So there's a breathing, like I can't fucking breathe, mm-hmm. Or my stomach is churning. I never go. If I'm upset, I don't go, oh, my pinky's bothering me. No, it's always in the center of the body somewhere.
Right, exactly.
I am so mad at you. My toe is itching. I can't even believe it.
No, but bodies, one of the coolest things about being a human, I think, is that bodies don't lie. And the reason bodies don't lie, which is one of the best things in the world, is because they can't. Bodies can't lie. It's not possible. Now, brains can lie, mouths can lie, we can lie about our feelings, but bodies don't lie, which is why they are invaluable for diagnosing illness. I worked for several years in a big medical center in Boston. I was the head of spiritual and energy medicine. And there were 20 doctors on the staff, and most of them were functional medicine doctors, and they would get close to a diagnosis, but they would feel like they weren't getting to where exactly they wanted to go. And invariably, the man who founded the place would, started by calling me on the phone and saying, "Hi, I'm sitting in my office with a patient who," and he'd say this. I wouldn't know the person's name, how old they were, what he thought the problem was. And he'd say, "Can you tune in and see what you get?" So I would do that. And I would tell him, "Oh, well, what you think is actually a swollen knee has nothing to do with a swollen knee. It has to do with this." And invariably, I would come back to some kind of emotional story where a person was not able to tell the truth about their feelings, or not able to speak the truth about what has happened, or stuck in some way. And when you go back behind symptomology, there's almost always an emotional and spiritual component to illness, because it doesn't show up in the body till last. The body is the densest part of a human being. And I mean that, geophysically, that's actual fact. Your body is denser than your feelings. Your feelings are as dense as water. Your feelings are fast like water.
So was it mostly an emotional and traumatic experience that would be the catalyst for these symptoms?
Well, what's so interesting about this, I don't think there is a subject that could have kept me interested in it as long as human beings have, except human beings. Because even if I was sitting in a room, let's say at a clinic full of 50 people who wanted to lose weight, let's just call it that. Those 50 people may have all had the quote unquote same goal. But how that was wired inside themselves, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, was completely different in every single one of them. So one person is traumatized and they're overweight because of that, right? Another person is trying to eat their feelings and they're overweight because of that. Another person is simply not educated enough about what would be good for them and what not. And every single person is wired differently. So yes, often it was trauma-based, but more, the common denominator in everything is that all of them had some form of resistance to their own experience. Go back to your, dominating nature, conquering nature, right? We view ourselves as something that needs conquering. That's not what any of us need, not even those who are caught in a dreadful addiction pattern. All of us have a truth that we're not living. If we're suffering, there's truth that we're not living. Now, we might know it. We might not know it. We might have an inkling about it. We might have no inkling whatsoever. But deep down, each one of us is here for a reason. The common reason is that we're all here to grow, as far as I'm concerned. If you're not growing here, you're not doing it. And in my belief system, you get to come back and do it over. It's resisting our feelings. I'm sure you've heard this a million times, Ralph Waldo Emerson, what you resist persists, right? Sure. Whatever you do, don't think about the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, right.
How fast?
Yeah,
right. Exactly. She's right there.
I pictured it right the second you said it, of course.
So don't think about the Statue of Liberty in a tutu. There she is. Yeah. Right? I could do it with anything you like. Well, for as long as any of us are resisting our own experience, we aren't integrating it. I choose that word deliberately. What we're doing is we're cutting off a piece of ourselves. We're saying, oh no, let's just freeze dry that and put it over there. and we'll never add water and we'll never have to deal with it. Well, that's not true, because you yourself are an integrity. The planet is an integrity. That's one of the reasons we're suffering from climate change, is we have treated planet Earth like it's not an integrity, like it's something that we can cut up into tiny pieces and serve like, hors d'oeuvres. Here, have shale, have oil, have coal, have, wait. Yes, trauma-based, but more, how do we then bring someone forward out of resistance to this, whatever this thing is? And the thing is, Bob, you and I can have been through the same experience. Let's say when we were 10, both of us were in terrible car accidents. Random stuff happens, car accidents happen. I'm going to have that symptomologically in my system completely differently than you.
Sure.
It's going to show up in a different way. I'm going to experience it in a different way. I'm going to need to release it in a different way. I am going to have to do some forgiving. I'm going to have to do some letting go. I'm going to have to do some figuring out of, why did I wire this up this way, right? I might have decided that I will never get in a car again. You might have decided, that's it, I'm going to be a race car driver.
Yeah, right. Or my reaction to it could be one of feeling scared all the time that these random acts of the world can take me out. And somebody else might say, I'm going to live because that was such a close call. I am really going to take some big risks because I don't know how long I have to be here.
And both of those are valid decisions as long as they come from having resolved what was unfinished in the problem. But instead, we like to push the problem under the rug and ignore it, which is fine, except that the problem is going to knock on your door. You might have been in the car as a 10-year-old, and let me pick something. And during the accident, your mom was driving, right? And you can't figure out why you can't have a long-term relationship with a woman because you can't trust them.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think of that one. That's pretty profound.
Well, why would you, in the quote unquote normal way we're taught to think, human beings, we don't put together a car accident when we're 10 years old with mom driving as I can't have a romantic relationship now.
Well, it sounds crazy, but it does make sense. Or you start picking women that aren't trustworthy.
On purpose. Because
yeah.
You're proving it to yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. All of it can be cleaned up with, oh my God, if that's what's driving the bus, as a metaphor,
yeah, sure.
Wait a minute. What if I drive the bus? What if I, like the wholeness of me, drives the bus, and we let this bad experience sit in one of the seats in the bus until it gets comfortable enough and I get comfortable enough so that we can talk it out and figure it out. Mm. This is actually what a recovery process is. Mm-hmm. You're recovering yourself. That's what you recover certainly in substance recovery. You recover yourself, your own awareness of your own wholeness. That's why I talk about people as having energy integrity. You are a whole energy system unto yourself. And when you interact with others, your energy system changes. Sometimes, like have you ever gone to a big expo or a conference, and you're wandering around and you see all kinds of people that you know, and you're saying hello and you're doing social things and you're getting the swag and you're doing all that stuff, right? And you get back to your hotel room after the second day and you think, I can't sit up for another minute. That's because of all the energy you've exchanged. What you need is to recharge. How do you recharge? That's the question. It's the question that Every one of my clients in one form or another has asked me, how do I regenerate my own energy? I've got too much on my plate. My boss expects too much. I'm too busy. I'm too scheduled. Think of that. I mean, you talk to people about stuff like this all the time, I'm sure.
Well, I do. And it brings in this idea of stress and overdoing things, and this spoken or unspoken idea that life is about constant accomplishment of things, of tasks, of material goods, of notoriety, fame. There's a lot of things that people are striving for. And when they're not in the striving, they feel guilty about not striving, or they're worried that they're not going to get to this place where they think is going to solve the problem. When I get from point A, where I am now, over to point B, then I can relax.
Then you don't even know how to relax.
No, you don't. It's I'm somebody that is I've accomplished a number of things in my life, but I also find that not accomplishing anything for periods of time is just as valuable, and it's not a popular stance, and I've been accused of being lazy.
Don't just do something, sit there.
Yeah. Right.
People don't know how to do that. People don't know how to do that. The television has to be on. The phone has to be in your hand. Constant input. You know what? Nope. I do jigsaw puzzles for meditation, and I pray and I think and I dream, and I've written lots and lots and lots of books, like 30 books, a lot of fiction, almost all about really how to be metaphysical and live in the world, was the sort of subtext. And the way I can be so creative is I spend a lot of time quiet in my own creative place, where I'm dreaming up stories and I'm figuring out how to address issues, and I'm not scrolling through Facebook. Not willing to let an algorithm run my life.
I was talking to my wife about this the other day, about the phrase posting. People post on social media. Well, when we were younger, there was no such thing. There was no social media, and the term posting wasn't even a thing. And it's so funny how that's part of, I saw a post and so posted this, and somebody reacted to their post. I'm like, why is that even a thing? Why is posting?
I want to know where that came from now. I have to think about that.
What the word? Well, I guess it's like the post office. You post a letter, you put it out there for somebody to see. So it became a post, on social media. I'm assuming this, and I'm right most of the time.
Of course you are. Don't be silly.
But isn't that an interesting thing, how that, and not only that, when people do this posting thing, there's a lot of times they're embellishing or creating an image that isn't true. And there's reactions from other people of, it can be anything, but there's a lot of, the goal a lot of times is to make other people feel like they're not doing as good as you are.
Exactly. Which is why I really appreciate talk about a phrase. People talk about social media as being a curated life.
Ooh.
Well, what else is curated? Well, art exhibits are curated. It means that someone is choosing what goes where. But real life is actually kind of disorganized and a little bit of chaotic and messy. And sometimes you end up doing things you don't want to do. Here's a good example. I went to the dentist this week, and it was a new dentist. And first of all, he looked like he shouldn't even play a dentist on TV. He was that young.
We're that old.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. I was like, yeah, you can't possibly be a dentist. You're not
old
enough
12?
to have gone to school that long. But okay. Anyway, he's talking to me, and I realized that, first of all, I don't like going to the dentist. A lot of people don't like going to the dentist. It's not fun. But aside from that everything he was saying to me about what he was calling his treatment plan was based on making me afraid.
Oh, that's horrific. Right, because then you get to come in more. He doesn't want to lose the patient. So if you're afraid, you're going to come there and spend more money.
And actually, he had the temerity to say, if this office is going to clean your teeth again, we're going to do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at this kid, and I thought to myself, wow, I wonder how much industry in our country, and I would not claim this for anywhere else in the world, but certainly in the US, is based on fear. And so what happened? So on the way home, I saw vans or trucks with like business names on the sides of them, right? For 7 different security companies, like alarm systems and how do you make this safe and how do you make that safe? And I thought, wow, well, I don't even like to wake up alarmed, right? To an alarm. No. And my life is such that I don't have to. But I was amazed at the fear mongering. And so much of that curated reality feels to me like it's based in fear. If you don't see my life as spectacular, somehow you won't see me as special. They're called Facebook friends for a reason. My definition of a real friend is someone who'll get me out of jail if I'm stuck in Lima, Peru.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So
somebody that you see and around them. And
somebody who would raise the State Department to the ground to get me out of jail.
What are you doing down there? Are you
really? I don't know. And I don't know why I picked Lima, but I did. This years ago.
Okay.
Anyway, okay. I probably know 5 people in my life who would go to Washington, D.C. and bang on the State Department door to get me out.
Okay.
5. And I thought that was a treasure trove of people. A lot of people.
It is a lot. It is a lot.
Real friends.
Right. If you got 1 or 2 of those, that's a gift. That's the biggest gift you could have, I think, is those kinds of friends where you go, that's a brother or a sister, basically.
And you know what? There are a few people in my life I would do that for.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But those are the connections that feed human energy. Those are the connections that aren't costly, even if they are a little bit leaky, because the exchange is reciprocal. People say what goes around comes around. And that's the premise of karma as taught in a very casual way in the world. That's really not what karma is, but that's another conversation. Actually represents is reciprocity, right? So if I call one of my friends who would come and get me in Lima, right, and he's busy, he'll say to me, babe, I'm busy. I'll call you later. Click. And I don't think anything of it. But if I called the cable company and someone did that,
you'd be mad.
I'd be pissed. That's right.
They don't care.
Right. That's right. So the thing to start to look at in terms of your own energetic system, and here is, before we were recording, we were talking about what chakras are. And Bob, you said, yes, I know about chakras, but I don't really know what they are.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm a limited chakra knowledge, and I've read about this stuff for years. And, I've seen the diagrams of where the different chakras are located. I know what the root chakra is, and the
Very good.
higher chakras that are, more up high in your head or even above your body. Really interesting stuff. That certainly has been figured out in many ways over centuries.
And what they are actually is esoteric renderings, representations of your endocrine system, your glands. So your glands are the masterminds behind all the systems. They excrete the hormones, the neurotransmitters, all the things that make everything inside your own body talk to each other. I visualize the chakras. Most people visualize them as sort of hockey pucks along the spine. That's not what they are. They're three-dimensional spheres of colored light. The root chakra you mentioned is sort of cherry red, like a little darker than a fire engine.
Mm-hmm.
And it lives at the base of your spine. And they all have emotional connections. They have glandular connections. They have connections to the rest of the body. But the most important thing about them is not their individuality. Yes, there are 8 major chakras along your spine, and they actually sit in front of your spine, like the center, like a center line all the way through your body, 3-dimensionally. The most important thing about them, though, is, are they talking to each other? When your chakras are disconnected from one another because one is functioning way too much and one is not functioning enough, or one is spinning way too fast, or one is going counterclockwise and another one's going clockwise, it's the communication system that actually makes it work. Like this. If the only note you had on a piano was middle C, you would not have music. You would have a note.
Mm-hmm.
It is the relationships between notes and the timing of those, the length of each note that make music. It is the relationships between the chakras that make you personally capable of regenerating your own energy through visualization, through intention, through prayer, through invocation. There's a million ways to regenerate chakras. So earlier you said when you're upset about something and you're churning, it's in your gut, right? It's not your pinky.
Oh, yeah, I did say that. I love that I said that.
It was good. It was good. I might steal that, actually.
You can have anything that I offer today.
What a guy.
Yeah.
Right back at you.
Thank you.
So if it's churning, it's probably connected to your 3rd chakra, which is at your solar plexus. And it's egg yolk yellow, fried egg yolk yellow. So now you've got 2 chakras below that, one at your root, one at your belly button, and you have 5 chakras, 5 chakras above that. The one above it is your heart, which is emerald green, then your throat, which is turquoise. Here, forehead, top of your head, and then right in front of your thymus gland, outside your body, by your sternum. If you came to me churning and said, "What do I do?" My gut is in a knot because fill in the blank. You'll tell me whatever story happened. I say, okay, we're not going to touch your 3rd chakra. We're not going to touch it at all. If somebody came in to the emergency room with a gunshot wound, would you poke it? I wouldn't. Of course not. You work with the chakras on either side. So I would tell you, okay, let's look at this. And I actually work not with 8 colors. I work with 16 colors, because if you go to the 2nd chakra, which is pumpkin orange, and you want to get to the 3rd chakra, you got to go through a DMZ. in the middle. And the DMZ is orange yellow. So it's not just orange and it's not just yellow. It's orange yellow. So the first thing I'd do is I would say to you, okay, connect to your second chakra. Become aware of the energy behind your belly button. Great. Now, imagine that you're floating up your own spine. Oh, you get to the churning, you get to the turmoil, leave it there. Just know that there's support under the churning. Right? Now, let's go to your fourth chakra, your heart chakra. Emerald green. And go down, green yellow. And feel into that. What does your third chakra actually need? Can you give it a voice? Can you give it a sound? Can you come up with a song that it is? Can you come up with a gesture? Can you come up with a sentence? How would you, if you had to explain to somebody what was happening in your third chakra, what would you say? Well, it's churning and it's churning clockwise. Let's just make that up. Okay. Is it going fast or slow? Is it hot or cold? Is it churning angry or is it churning hurt? Or is it churning sad? Oh, well, there are all kinds of variations. I would send you probably, if it wasn't released during a session, I would send you to an art supply store to buy origami paper. And I would say, find yourself some orange, yellow, and green, and put those colors in front of you until it calms down, right? Just imagine that they're talking to each other because that's what you want. But when you leave the churning there and you don't deal with it, right, it shuts off a little bit of your third chakra. So if most chakras, let's say, are a foot around, right, suddenly this one is 11 inches. How many times do you have to do it before it's gone? Or it never really is gone, but it becomes a spark instead of a full expression. We can learn to manage our own chakras. We can use them also to solve an issue, right? So let's say there's somebody at work who every time you meet with them or you look at them, you feel like you're 3 inches tall. They're condescending, they're obnoxious. They remind you of, I don't know, the nun in the third grade who wrapped your knuckles, whatever, who they remind you of, but they make you feel bad. Tune into your body. Where do you feel bad? Oh, well, there's something in my throat. What haven't you said? And have you not said it to that person, or have you not said it in the bathroom mirror? What are you wanting to say? Get away from me. It's not your right to make me feel bad, right? Your throat will ease. So it's not complicated. It's just that we're not taught to solve problems by going within. We're taught to solve problems by doing something on the outside. Do it. And this is a being way to heal. And the reason it's not alive and well in most medical centers now is because there's no way to monetize it. It's not going to cost you a dime to work with your chakras. I mean, if you want to come have a session with me, it will cost you something. But on your own, researching, figuring it out, that's why I wrote the workbooks that I wrote, so that you can learn how to work with your own chakras. I wrote 8 workbooks, one for each of the major chakras.
Oh, and I love that.
And you figure out what's going on with you. And all of us can do this. It's some of the books I write are mystery novels. So it's like being a chakra detective. What's going on? And okay, let's say you have this thing in your throat with this person who makes you feel bad. Is it on the front of your neck or the back of your neck that you feel it? Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, it's on the back of my neck. It's from your past. That person is reminding you of someone completely different than the person you're actually dealing with now. Who was that? Oh, yeah. I had a swimming coach who just made me feel like a creep all the time. Yelling at me and obnoxious. And, I was a fat kid and I didn't belong on the swim team. So, where's the real work? It's probably you sitting down and telling that coach off finally as a grown up, so that the little you who incurred the injury, if you will, can get it handled. But there are 100 million, zillion, squillion different ways for all those things to be encoded. So sometimes there's a secondary chakra involved in a problem. Sometimes there's a tertiary one. Sometimes you start working with one chakra and you go, wait a minute, this is feeling like it's moving. Why do I think that my stomach is churning when it's really not my stomach? It's something else entirely. I can't catch a deep breath. Oh, my heart was hurt. Do you see?
Sure. Well, it's phantom pain in a sense. It's pain, or it's pain that's originating somewhere else. You see that a lot in when I've had chiropractic work, where I'll say, "Oh, I think it's this," and he goes, "No, it's coming from here," and it's completely not the same area. And then he works on the area that it's not, and then I'm like, "Oh, now why does my shoulder feel better when you worked on my hip? I don't get it."
That's right, because everything is a mirror.
Mm.
It's a polarity thing. That is exactly why I don't go poke myself into the third chakra when you tell me that your stomach's churning.
You just said a word that I really like, which is mirror. This is something, I don't know how I thought of this. I guess it was intuitive or whatever. When somebody is acting in a way that is unpleasant or difficult, what I have found, and I've done this quite a bit, and I've, sort of disseminated this technique to a number of people, don't react, have a flat expression that doesn't give away what you're thinking at all. Mm-hmm. Then you become a mirror, so the other person has to look at themselves because they don't know what the reaction is, because there isn't one. And then they have to, and sometimes I've seen people really change because I didn't react at all and didn't have any, I didn't roll my eyes, I didn't even smirk, all the stuff I want to do, but I don't. It's really hard to do that sometimes when somebody's being absolutely impossible. But that idea of creating a mirror for the person who's disturbed, and we can do that for ourselves, is basically what you're saying, and take a look at what is actually going on. It's really kind of a cool idea.
You are absolutely correct. Everything here is a mirror. This is something I say to people all the time. Life on this planet is actually based on polarity. And because there's day and night. It's that simple. What have we done with it? What we've really done with polarity is we have taken it to its illogical, furthest extent conclusion, and we've turned it into polarization. And if any thinking person had to describe our social situation in the world right now in the US, it would be all about polarization and disagreement because of it.
Yeah.
That's not what we're here for. We're here to experience polarity, right? What you're doing is, by not reacting, and instead what you're encouraging is a response, right? And a choice about the response. You are actually helping people see themselves and hear themselves. Because a lot of times when people behave that way, what they want is your reaction.
Sure. And then they can react back. And then it just builds into basically a 3-year-old in a sandbox.
Exactly. In fact, I know more mature 3-year-olds than that sometimes. It is amazing. And it makes your life more peaceful, more easy. You can do chakra work standing in line at the grocery store.
Oh, I love that you have these workbooks. How can people get those?
On Amazon. First of all, they're only print books. And the reason they're only print books is because they are workbooks, and there are exercises in them, and you are meant to write in the books.
Love that.
Yes, it took me a long time to figure out that they shouldn't be ebooks. This is not about consuming information. This is about digging deep into your own information so that your everyday life works better. That's what I'm really interested in. So they're all on Amazon. They're called Energy Integrity, and there's a different one for each chakra.
What you're saying, and I think this is really terrific, because we don't heal other people. We can facilitate people healing themselves. And that's really what these books are. So this idea that let's just pick a doctor, an MD, that dentist you talked about. I am the person with the knowledge. I can fix your problem the same way a mechanic can, replace the carburetor in your car and it'll run better.
Exactly.
It's not that. It's really about that we have power or the ability within us to do certain things. Obviously, if there's an injury that's a mechanical injury, or there's certain things that doctors are super valuable, and the diagnostic equipment is amazing in a lot of areas.
Bleeding, if you're bleeding, you need to get the bleeding taken care of before you do the chakra work. That's correct. That is
just
correct.
Picturing somebody just like they're meditating while their blood is spurting out of their neck.
Right. But now here's an example. I have seen someone misjudge the depth of a step, and you know how your knee can kind of
I've done that
a million times, right? Well, she sprained her ankle just a tiny bit, and she was on her way into my office. She sat down on the floor, she grabbed her ankle, and she said, the energy in my calf is healthy, the energy in my foot is healthy, and together they meet to make the energy in my ankle healthy. And she got up and she walked, and it wasn't sprained.
Whoa.
Because she did the relationship between the two, right? She actually made the music. That's what this is. It's making energetic music that you have the power to make every single moment of every single day.
I'm going to ask you something that's personal for me. Not about you. I won't ask you anything. I have developed in the last couple of years a nervous, I don't know if I'm just picking the word nervous habit, a tic, a thing that I do. I'll show it to you. I do this like this with my thumbs and my, I
come further away so that I can see it.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I got to go this way.
Yeah, it's not in the camera. There you go.
Like this. I do this and I do it and I'm not aware of it. When I'm made aware of it, I can stop. I don't know if it's what it's tied to. I don't really know how to stop it and be, aware of it. It's way at the extremity of my body because it's my hand and my finger. I do it a little bit on the left, but much more so on the right. And yes, I do notice that it happens more when I'm troubled. I do notice that. It drives my wife crazy. She's like, this is driving me crazy.
Well, she's letting it drive her crazy. No offense to your wife.
Right.
Right. She doesn't have to let it drive her crazy.
Right.
But okay. That's a self-soothing gesture.
Yes, but that I've been told that, and it feels like that's what it is. What am I soothing? That's really the root. That's what I'm wondering. How do I discover what it is that needs to be, that I'm trying to soothe, that this has become such a dominant kind of activity or consistent activity that many times I'm not even aware. Have
you had any sort of luck in having a look at triggers? Like, for example, my thought would be that might be a way of expressing anger so that it doesn't come out of your mouth. Right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay.
Or unpleasant emotions like I'm disturbed right now about something. It does seem to be tied to emotions. But sometimes I'm just sort of don't feel like I'm just, maybe I want to say boredom sometimes too, which seems kind of an odd thing because I like being bored most of the time. I think I do. Maybe I'm tricking myself.
Well, here's the thing. You are actually, brain scientists say that you are in charge of 10% of your brain. The 10% of your brain is conscious, right? You've heard that before.
Yes.
So the math on that is that 90% isn't.
Okay.
Which is actually a really good thing, because if you actually had to have a conversation with me and grow your eyelashes and make bone marrow and red blood cells all at the same time, you would be really tired. So, okay, we're grateful for that. Somebody really smart thought that up. So if you're not in charge of 90% of that, the question is that a neural response to an emotional thing? Yeah. Right? Okay. Like you would have the same response if a doctor took a hammer and hit your knee. A reflex. Is that a reflex? Mm-hmm. Is there any numbness in your hand?
No.
And it doesn't get numb sometimes?
No.
Okay, good. So I would say then that that's not a neural response, that it's far more likely that it's an emotional response. And on the right-hand side of your body, I would be asking you questions like, what male authority figure have you felt that you couldn't speak up to all your life?
I don't really have one. Not that I'm thinking about it. I'm certainly not my dad. I could tell him anything.
Okay.
And that's usually the dad, right? I mean, and I didn't have any kind of dominant.
It could be your dad. It could be a coach. It could be a teacher.
You know, if I were to say anything, I just, never particularly liked anything of authority. I don't have a specific. I don't think of
okay.
Coach Johnson was an asshole. I don't think that ever. I don't have that.
Certainly it could be that it is about male authority. And then I would take it further, because you are male. How does it figure with your authority in the situations that cause it?
Okay. Now that I had a very strong response to. And the response is, I don't feel like I have authority.
Hello, bingo.
That's what it was like a sharp.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm never accused of pulling my punches. Sorry about that.
No, I love that. I love that. And I'm not afraid to say what happens, because I'm intrigued by what transpires inside, my body, my emotion. So there's a feeling of perhaps, inadequacy or weakness
or disempowerment.
Excellent word.
Or even more, a couple of things. It's 2022, and 2022, it's hard to be a white male. And in 1952, it was much easier.
So now we're to let's make America 1952 again.
No, we do not think that that's a good idea.
No, I'm being silly.
Right. Silly. But what it has done is caused questions, open-ended questions. What is it to have authority as a man in a situation? How does a man react here? What is a man's responsibility here? All those questions actually come up now that didn't in 1952. In 1952, those questions already had answers.
That's so great, because I have talked about this mostly with other men, about I'm not sure how I'm supposed to be, because some of the ways I want to be, I'm not allowed to. Society says I can't. Some of it is really uncool, but what am I replacing it with? I'm about as I'm one of the least perpetrators of toxic masculinity that I know. But maybe part of that feels like maybe not that I need to be a chauvinist or any of that stuff, but what is replacing that for me that I don't, what can I, I guess maybe part of it is that I used to get a lot of that from my work experience and
affirmation,
and
acknowledgement and connection.
Yeah. And money too. Those are all acknowledgements. And since that has not been as dominant in my life for a number of years, I'm thinking maybe that could be part of it. Because I was going to ask you, like, what if you're trying to be as authentic and yourself as you can? Like, I know that you were on Broadway at one point in your career and you went, this is not for me. I want to do this other thing. And I've been denying my intuitive thing. And this has become your life work. What if the things that you love, that you're trying to do are not happening? And I think that's part of it too. It's like there's a thing of, well, I want to do this, but it's not really, and it feels like it's not because of me.
Right. It's circumstances.
Yeah.
Or your vision is very big and it requires cooperation from other people. So, okay. So am I failing as a man? How about that? Those fingers.
Yeah.
Am I failing as a man? Yeah.
Well, it was interesting when you said that the hand that I'm not holding the microphone with started doing it. I went like this.
Uh-huh. So, okay.
Now I'm really disturbed.
No, I don't think you should be disturbed. I think
in a good way. I like
good.
This.
I think you should start to ask yourself some questions. Like, okay, what kind of a guy do I want to be in this situation? And how can I make valid the kind of man I am, whether it goes with what masculinity says it needs to be in the world? Because all those are big, broad stroke.
Yes.
If it were medieval times, you would want to be Sir Gawain, right?
Yeah.
But those are big ideas. Those aren't, how did Sir Gawain brush his teeth? No one is talking about. Right. Yeah, right.
And did he brush his teeth?
Really? Probably not. But we're talking about how to be the kind of man you want to be in everyday life. So what I would send you off to do is get the 5th chakra workbook, which is the turquoise one for here, because this is at the end of your arm, right? Okay. Your arm comes right back to your throat.
Okay.
I would say, let's look at your past and how you learned to be a man. Let's look at your present and see what kind of man you are now. And if you're glad about that, and let's look at your future and decide what kind of man you want to be. Because, I know you're very out there about your recovery, and I'm sure as a sponsor, you are an example and you're wanting to be a particular kind of example. There is a lot of disempowerment in male people these days, and with reason, because there's been a whole lot of tusk. This is not what you're supposed to be doing, but there's not a whole lot of, oh, honey, do this instead. You got a lot of taboos. So how do you step forward to be the kind of person you want to be and maintain your sense that you are being authentic, that you are not like sitting in a trope, that you're not doing what's expected of you, but you're doing what you're actually choosing. So it's slowing down your conscious awareness. Because what I bet is what's happening is unconsciously you're saying, I don't know how to show up in this situation.
Yeah.
That's this. I don't know. Okay. I want to show up, but I want to show up in a conscious, kind, gentle, sober way. I don't have an example. I don't know how to do this. And the answer is no, you don't. You're going to have to be brave enough to be a pioneer.
Yeah. And I love that. And it's an interesting thing that I've basically retired from my previous career, which I did or previous 3 careers, because I've had 3, like you've had multiple careers. And I'm doing this podcast. That's part of what I'm doing, which I love. This is like one of my favorite things in life to do. I just, to talk to somebody like you and the other guests that I have it is the biggest gift that I think I've ever received, because I love it. I can't even tell you how much I love it.
It absolutely shows. It shows on your website. It shows in the ones I listen to.
Because it's a transition also into a new arena. And I am entering I'm not entering, I'm in it. I'm in the last third of my life, if I live into my 90s, which there's a good shot at that because my parents both did. I can see much more than when I was younger, the finality of this part of my life. There is to learn how to be older without losing the youth inside of me, I think is part of what the task is for somebody I'm 68. I think you're around the same age.
I'm a little younger than you, but not much. Yep.
Yeah. So you probably are experiencing that yourself in some ways. It's like, well, what's important to me? Like you've done that, and I'm sure you're still always changing and morphing because that's what we do. Mm-hmm. But you moved from a busy city to a quieter place. I love where I live, so that's not an issue. But it's how do I spend my days and how do I feel good about how I'm doing that? This is certainly one of the main things. Anyway, I'm rambling, but I feel like I can trust you. That's why I'm saying these things.
I'm glad. The other question I would have for you about this is this: you implied that there's a certain aspect of feeling thwarted about going forward and doing the things you want to do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that actually is coming from a younger man's expectation of what you want, as opposed to an adult, elder's surrendered place where you are used to reach the people that you need to reach. Do you see the difference?
I sure do. Absolutely,
some of that's a habit, right? One of the things I had to get really clear about before I started talking to podcast hosts was what is actually really important to me here. And what's really important to me about having conversations like this is this: we should be teaching energy stuff to people like we teach hygiene, right? You brush your teeth, you wash your hair, you go to the dentist, you take a shower, you have your clothes are clean, you do all of those. This is energetic hygiene. And instead, what we have is social media, which makes for a disaster, right? It's like all of us are bathing in dirty water on social media. And I don't diss social media. It is absolutely something that is right for some people and circumstances. But I have a passion for teaching people how to wake up to their own energetic truth. Because you can get well, right? Mm-hmm. I say, do the chakra workbook and see how it changes your hand. And the other thing is, go to some like woo-woo store and get yourself a piece of turquoise rock. And it doesn't matter what kind of rock it is, as long as it's turquoise colored. When you start to do that, hold that rock.
All right, I've got turquoise here. I don't need to go to a store.
Good. Just pick that up. Yeah. And the other thing you can actually do is make a request. And that is, let me be conscious of this. From the moment it is happening, let me be conscious of this.
Okay.
And be shown, because I'm willing to bet it's a place in you where you're having trouble getting into the jump rope of participation as the kind of man that you want to be, because you are not sure if he's welcome.
Damn. That's some heavy shit right there.
Well, yes. I am known for saying to people, listen, I don't really care if you wear red pants or black pants, but if you want to know whether to take your mother off life support, I'm a good person to know. Right? I mean, those are the things that I deal with in life.
Boy, are you a delight.
Thank you. Yes. And right back at you, the same thing. This is fun.
Yeah. So how do people, I'm assuming you do sessions on over the internet or?
I do.
Okay. So let's tell folks how they can get a hold of you if they want to do this. Thank you for doing that with me. I didn't know that was going to happen.
My sincere pleasure.
Yeah.
Two things. First of all, I would like to offer your audience a free gift, and I mean a free gift, and that's this. If you will go to chakras.susancorso.com, that's chakras.susancorso.com. There is a free gift for you, and that is one of 2 digital downloads for what I call the less mores. So the less mores are ways to start to work with your chakras immediately. So let's do the 5th chakra because that's yours, right? Than the one that we've just worked with, right? So the less is criticizing less. So when you're dealing with 5th chakra issues, you daily criticize less and you celebrate more. And what is cool about that, particularly for the situation you just described to me, is part of what's causing this hand thing for you is self-criticism. Let's get the criticism out of the way and celebrate the kind of man you actually are. So there's that. Now, if people want to actually find me, you can go to susancorso.com or to a website about my spiritual work, which is ampersand.org, IAMPERSAND.org. And I will send you an email and ask you to put those in the show notes. And send me the contact form and I'd be glad to work with you.
Fantastic. So actually you're spelling out the word ampersand. It's not the actual ampersand.
That's correct. Yeah. And that's based on something I said a very long time ago to a peace activist, which was the most important word in every language is and. And it's because what has happened to us is this emphasis on or has started to hurt us. This world is not about you or me, Bob. It's about you and me. And the sooner I know that and the sooner everybody else knows that, the better. Because then we're going to start to take care of each other. And that's what we're here to do.
I'm letting that sink in. That's why the long pause. I was feeling it through the screen. Yes.
Excellent.
I just love talking to you. And boy, that was just tremendous. Thank you for reaching out.
Oh, my sincere pleasure. And thank you for inviting me to be a guest.
Yes. So contact Susan Corso for all the wonderful work that she does. And Exploding Human fans, we love Susan Corso, and we're going to, and I see how this is part of it. I was going to say, I love you, Susan, too.
Thank you.
And that was a hard thing for me to say because I'm a man.
And wow, good for you, because you didn't know how I was going to react.
I didn't want you to take it the wrong way. I wanted you to take it the way. And
what I did was I took it right into my heart, and I thought, oh, how cool. I feel so appreciated. You are
appreciated, and best to your cat.
Smooch, thank you.
Smooch the cat, which I didn't get to see, but that's okay. Maybe there'll be a picture somewhere along the.
I'll get you a picture of Smooch. She's adorable.
Yeah, I have a cat too. So us people that love cats, they're really special creatures.
Absolutely.
They all are, even giant elk.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. I don't even know why I'm saying these things. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Much appreciation to you folks for listening to The Exploding Human. Big thanks to Dr. Susan Corso. Please check out the show notes. There will be links to her websites and her workbooks and all ways to get in touch with her and the fine work she's doing. Have a blessed day. Thank you so much. Bye.